A federal appeals court in Washington has just wrapped up hearing oral arguments related to the election interference case involving former President Trump.
This is in connection with his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election leading up to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Mr. Trump arrived early this morning to the courthouse for the hearing. At issue here whether the former president has immunity because he was in office on January 6th.
The case against Trump is being led by special counsel Jack Smith. The former president pleaded not guilty last August after being indicted on federal charges. NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor joins us now live outside the courthouse with the very latest. Hi, Yamiche, good to have you with us. So proceedings just wrapped up a few moments ago. We had heard first from Trump lawyer Dean John Sauer, where he had this lengthy back and forth with one of the judges regarding a key aspect of this case. That's whether a former president can be criminally charged or criminally prosecuted if they were not impeached. Tell us what we heard here.
Well, good morning. And on a day, of course, that is historic when you think about the legal problems that former President Trump is facing. Now, what you're talking about is Judge Pan, who was a judge that was appointed by President Biden. She was pressing the lawyers for former President Donald Trump on the limitations of this argument that they're making, which is that former President Trump is absolutely immune to all criminal liability for any action taken in office. Take a listen to her questions to him.
You're saying a president could sell pardons, could sell military secrets, could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival.
Sale of military secrets strikes me as something that might not be held to be an official act. The sale of pardons is something that's come up historically and was not prosecuted.
But your brief says that communicating with an executive branch agency is an official act, and communicating with a foreign government is an official act. That's what presidents do.
They're very strong situations. There's very strong examples of potential official acts.
Now, James Pierce, who is a lawyer for special counsel Jack Smith, he specifically referenced that answer by the lawyer for President Trump and said, quote, "It would be a frightening future," he said, "if we had lived in a country where there would be no criminal liability for a president who did things like murder a political rival using SEAL Team 6, sold pardons, or sold military secrets." Now, he was pushing back on the idea that there would be a floodgate of prosecutions if it was found that presidents could be found criminal liable for any actions they took in office. So really, this is the government saying we have to live in a society, in a country where presidents can be held criminal liable for some of the actions that they take in office. And there was this also back and forth with a judge that was appointed by George H.W. Bush, of course, a Republican president appointing that judge. She was pointing out, well, how do we write opinions that don't open up the floodgates? Again, pushing back on this idea that maybe if they rule in Trump's favor, and that there is sort of an opening of floodgates, that they're going to be president after president's going to be prosecuted. And the government is essentially saying what former President Trump did was unprecedented, that there has to be a way to specifically address this issue of overturning elections.
Yamiche, the special counsel of the government, bottom line, they want the court to make a decision on whether Trump has immunity and not just say, hey, we don't have jurisdiction right now because we don't have a verdict in this case. I mean, that's a key question lingering over this hearing, right?
It is a key question lingering over this hearing. The lawyers for special counsel Jack Smith are saying that the court should say that they have jurisdiction and that they should find that presidents are not absolutely immune. What's, of course, going to be interesting here is what happens next. We're now going to be waiting to see what their decision is. But no matter what they decide, we understand, and it's very likely that this is going to end up in the Supreme Court. And there it's going to be, in some ways, a political decision, possibly, because there are some that worry that this conservative majority court with 3 justices appointed by Donald Trump, that they might possibly side with Donald Trump on this issue. We should also point out that Jack Smith, special counsel Jack Smith, tried to get the Supreme Court to fast track this and say, well, what do we think about this right now? The Supreme Court declined to do that, so we're going to have to wait and see what happens next.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.